Yes. And let's start with the film.
Forget the word.
Think about how it could be a new mindset where to share has become our greatest power.
It is this energy that guides us, will enlighten us, where meaning and purpose is a flame.
Burn inside every soul on the planet.
Welcome to the human-to-human model, uniting and inspiring leaders globally.
To build together with meaningfulness and joy.
Opening new possibilities for people.
Anticipating disruption. Rethinking society.
Who will reach their potential because the future is today.
Join us.
To be sustainable plus 100 world.
I think right now is clearly the way to act. Lack of clean energy will affect the Earth's core later.
I find that when people begin making small changes, they gradually get bigger because they get this feeling, I am doing something.
So we moved from greed-based civilization to human value-based civilization. Making money is a happiness. Making other people happy is a super happiness.
Wondering about your future? So bring your DNA to us today.
And another one. When you are a dreamer, when you are a visionary, of course you have your vision, but there are moments that sometimes maybe you stop believing in this vision, especially in the moments of some problems or failure. So could you tell me, and could you tell also to thousands of people who maybe will be motivated by your answer, what keeps you fighting for your vision? What helps you to reach your dream?
Well, I mean, I think I'm kind of constitutionally just geared to just keep going. I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, it just I don't know. I mean, it certainly there are times when things don't go well, and then that's quite dispiriting for sure. And so then it's difficult to proceed with the same level of enthusiasm. But I do think the things that we're doing are pretty important to the future. And if we don't succeed, then it's not clear what other things would succeed. And if we don't succeed, then we'll be certainly pointed to as a reason why people shouldn't even try for these things. So I think it's important that we do whatever is necessary to keep going.
So thank you, and I wish you that your next birthday is very successful.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Dave and Paulette, you did a great job there.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yes, this is sweet.
Okay. But did you imagine when we had this first meeting that we'll have this global eConvention? Yeah. So you see, I think that I'm in the industry since 17 years, but from the beginning, I was not from, let's say, from the technology side. So I understood from the beginning that it's so important that in order to make 100% clean energy or to change the world 100%, we cannot make it just, amongst our industry guys, yes? And especially when you work with the guys who are from the technology industry, they are very conservative, yes? And very difficult for them is to transfer the message to the general public, yes? So that's why from the beginning, I was explaining to our industry leaders that we should work with the public influencers. Of course, it's very difficult for them to understand because they always think about age to age. ROI, return on investment. And they cannot really see the connections between celebrities or public influencers on their day-to-day business. Yes. So, but as I always say, you see, whatever we are doing, of course, to make business and to grow the companies. But at the end of the day, the fruits of our work are helping the earth, and even more important, are helping those who live on earth. And today it would be just a pity not to make our influencer discussion on the occasion or on Earth Day. And to be honest with you, I wanted to actually invite also Dr. Goodall. There's some chat. No, it's working, everything. So I wanted to invite actually for this event, Dr. Goodall, Akon, all the people actually who are supporting us, yes, who helped us to create the vision. And then at the end of the day, I say, okay, because you see, the thing is that often those people think that we are using them just, you know, to their name to promote ourselves, yes. Of course, not Dr. Goodall, not Professor Yunus, because Professor Yunus supported our vision just based on the email, yes, and Dr. Goodall also is supporting so much. But many celebrities, they think that other people, they just want to use them, yes, their name to promote something, yes. And actually, I believe that in the activities that we are doing, it's not for the business purposes, but it's really for helping the planet, helping the people. So let's say that we have sincere, as industry, sincere, not saying in English. Actually, our actions are sincere, yes, let's say. So it's not just for the promotion. We don't want to use celebrities to promote, but together to develop and to create the new world. So we're also thinking that it doesn't make sense to pay the celebrities for promotion. It's better to involve them and to explain how big opportunities they can have in the clean tech business. Yes, like for example, Akon. So he's promoting solar because it's his business. So I always believe that the best way of involvement of people is to create win-win. Yes, so that when the person is involved, then he will or she will promote by themselves. So, but you see, it's always the issue that because when we are becoming too much creative and too much speaking about celebrities, etc., so then our industry leaders they lose the scope, yes, and focus, and then they think, oh, you know, this clean tech business club, Solar Future Today, it's only the parties, it's a black tie gala, having fun, yes. So I said no. So for this event, I prefer to keep it really focused on the content and to invite you guys, and then to organize the next one when we will deliver with this one, and then we can invite Dr. Goodall, Professor Yunus, etc. Because I believe that those people during the last 5 years help us to shape the vision. Yes, so for sure we should meet together. Yes, and during this COVID era, what is possible that we can meet at least online at the same time, because it's normally it's so busy. Yes, to gather those people at the same time, yes, because they have, you know, like Dr. Goodall, she has like, I think 300 days traveling, yes. I believe the same for Professor Yunus, yes. We don't hear you.
I just suggest, oh, it's because Philly is backing. Ask Ernst how many days he has been traveling in the past, you know.
Yes, yes. You see, so I would like to, you know, that today we unite our forces, and I would like to ask you, you know, how would you like to support me to, you know, to also make this meeting while inviting together and uniting together Bertrand Piccard, Akon, Dr. Goodall, Professor Yunus. So you saw all these people together with us. And but you see, I believe in the power of DNA, and I believe that even if we meet just for 5 minutes together, the miracle will happen. So Adam, I would like, because you see, like I always say, nothing happens in life by accident. So actually, Adam, I met Adam at some meeting in Shanghai, which was organized by Steve Milgrim. Yes, And then you see, by accident, we met with Adam. Then I met Dr. Goodall by accident also in US. And then I learned from Adam that he's working with Dr. Goodall, and then we met together. Yes. So really incredible. So Adam, I give you the floor. Yes. So because we are having here educators and influencers. Yes. So I believe that the next wave of the of the disruption should be hand by hand with educators and influencers to not only develop our industry, but also to reach the wider audience. Yes, because this is the final customer, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Tomasz.
Sorry, after 3 days, my head is not so.
No, that's okay. And what I know from Tomasz is that, when we've done a couple events with Dr. Jane Goodall, Roots and Shoots Awards events with students, you always show up just in time, and you're a very good ad-libber, kind of like a jazz musician, and you go with it. And so my introduction to this e-conference, it's one of those experiences with Tomasz where, you jump right in, and, how much of a heads up did I get to chair this? Not much, but I'm happy to be here and happy to see you guys and talk with you about, for one, Earth Day. I noticed Paulette and Dave with ACES. There was an announcement that came through my email today stating that that Denis Hayes will be keynote speaker here for an upcoming e-conference for ACES. And there's a connection there to you, Professor Ernst, in Santa Barbara, where, as you guys may know, back in 1969, 3 million barrels of oil were spilled off the coast of Santa Barbara. And that was one of the impetuses for Earth Day and Denis Hayes organizing Earth Day. This is 50 years ago. And so I would like to, make the connection there between Paulette and Ernst, between ACES and Ernst, your background in Santa Barbara, and just kind of open up the discussion with, okay, Denis Hayes was not an influencer before Earth Day came about. And being an educator myself, I believe that some of the biggest influencers are, of course, some of the celebrities that we know that are, influential in the clean tech space, but then the students and children out there heavily influence parents and people around. So, my question to you is, how can we generate or create more influencers out there like Denis Hayes from education, and bring those influencers to the table that can influence people over their chicken dinners, over, at home, influence their parents so that, as their schools are going solar and bringing in clean technology, they can say, Mom, Dad, why don't we have solar on our rooftop? Or Mom, Dad, why doesn't your business factory have solar on it? And so how can we as a group shape influencers that aren't necessarily celebrities, but influencers that are in our education system and at our institutions of learning? Paulette.
Oh, okay. I'll jump in there because I was really excited about what you just said, because those were my main bullet points. The whole point for me about influencers is the very thing you said. Everyone is an influencer. I think and especially the young children starting out, we have the opportunity through education to help people learn a little bit better how to influence, be it their families, their friends, their networks. It's like the messaging doesn't necessarily come from people just saying, here are the facts. I mean, it's all about connecting with others, especially others who are not in your usual way of thinking, finding the common value ground. sharing stories that are meaningful and discussions that are meaningful, especially with people who may not understand the problems we're trying to address, much less the solutions. So I think there's a really large place for kind of education around how to engage with others and make them become part of the influencing community. So I look forward to hearing what everybody else has to say on our panel, and I welcome anyone who's outside watching us to contact me if you want to talk more one-on-one about this later. Just want to throw that out there. So anyway, thank you for the great introduction, Adam, and for reminding us that our future is not only on our shoulders, but on how we help our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren do better at becoming influencers themselves.
Thank you, Paulette. Professor Ernst, would you like to jump in terms of your thought on your experience with education and shaping leaders of the future?
Yeah, well, let me first say, I'm delighted seeing you, Adam and Paulette, starting with the positive side of influencers. But there are problematic sides as well. You know, there are people who earn a lot of money by being influencer. And if you look at who it is mostly either big entertainers or big advertisers. And the advertiser advertise more consumption. You know, this is where they get the money from. So I'm, of course, very much in favor of an educational institution like the Brand School of Environmental Science and Management in Santa Barbara to educate the young people into being influential, being thoughtful, being exact, being broad as well. You know, all those virtues of good education are very, very important, but influencing is a two-sided sword, you know. I mean, Hitler was a great influencer in the wrong direction. So we have to be a bit careful when just measuring the effect. The effect can be negative. It's not 100 is good and 0 is bad. No, 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 no. The sign makes a difference. Okay. Well, look, I was extremely honored being appointed as Dean of that Graduate School of Environmental Science and Management. I believe it was the only master course school west of Chicago on environmental management and science. And, you know, I've been changing jobs in my life 9 times or more and had no preparation for being the dean. My job before was being member of parliament in Germany, and in that capacity actually helping my friend Hermann Scheer creating the feed-in tariffs law, which everybody opposed at the time. They said, you are crazy, you are lunatics, etc. But my friend Hermann Scheer said, well, a feed-in tariffs law would lead peasants and engineers and home builders, etc., to use solar energy, wind energy, and the rest. I mean, Eike knows about all that, and Hermann Scheer has been a hero. But at the beginning, he was extremely courageous, saying, we want this law. And I was helping him, of course. Okay, so before that, I was a parliamentarian. And then all of a sudden, I was a dean. In America, the dean's job is essentially fundraising. They call it development. But anyway, it's fundraising. I did that very well, I believe, during my 3 years. we collected something like $25 million for that very small school. So it was a success story as well. But what I was very much interested in was bringing new aspects into the meaning of environmental management. When I first asked my faculty, what do you mean by environmental management? Essentially, it was the management of national parks or of sea parks, which is a good thing, no doubt. But for me, it was a totally different thing, such as transforming the mobility industry in something that is less destructive for the environment, that is. Or the same for ocean management. Fishery as such is not a bad thing, but overfishing is bad. So management also has to be reasonable, modest, target-oriented, etc. And all that should be part of the mindset of the students. And then another thing, much before I joined the Bren School, I did a study in the so-called Wuppertal Institute for Climate, Environment, and Energy on resource productivity. And we found out that a 5-fold increase of resource productivity is technically possible, you know, extracting from 1 kilowatt hour 5 times more benefit, added value. And that means you need not a single nuclear power. You can do away with coal and the rest can be sun. But without energy productivity, it wouldn't work. So I asked my colleagues in Santa Barbara, what do you do about resource productivity? And the question was, what the hell is that, Ernst? I said, well, look, extracting more value out of a unit of water, energy, minerals, etc. I said, yes, sounds like a good idea. Why don't you teach it? You say, okay, well, I was hired as a dean and not as a teacher, but nevertheless I did. And then the students were delighted and said, oh, this is a great thing. This can be our profession in our future life. And so I saw that the possibility of an individual as a teacher to get the young guys excited is a great possibility. So I very much enjoyed it, but I also enjoyed the political game with Hermann Scheer, etc. So probably my mindset is that I love to be delighted by my experience, you know.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction and for sharing that, Professor Ernst. I definitely agree with you that it's not black and white, never 100% good and 0 bad. Sustainability is definitely, there's a lot of gray. And so how can we incentivize educators, influencers to, yes, earn money because we need to do that, but how can we do that in a way that is fruitful and productive? And are there lessons with circular economy, efficiencies, and can students and educators be engaged in that learning and help shape that future? So there's
asking this question. I have learned last week a very interesting and surprising thing from the European Commission. They are committed to fulfill the Paris agreement on climate. And they said 50% of the homework for fulfilling the climate commitment is the circular economy. It's not solar, it's not energy efficiency, it's the circular economy, which is a big surprise to me. But an hour ago, I had a preparatory telephone conference for a meeting, electronic meeting with the Vice President of the EU Commission, Frans Timmermans, who is the mover, influencer, if you wish, for circular economy in all of Europe. So I believe it is extremely important to also think of materials, not only of energy.
Very good. That is a good segue. Deepak Mahapatra. Did I say your last name? Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. You are the Policy and Business Development Officer at the Alliance for Rural Electrification. And so you are an expert in policy, and we're talking about influencers as well as educators. But obviously, as Professor Ernst was talking, the circular economy and policy drives a big part of that. What do you see in terms of policy shaping rural electrification, and what is your experience there?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. First of all, I wanted to address to the first question about the influence, how to influence more people to, let's say, go green or to go into this business, or at least to ask the right questions. Why not there is a rooftop solar on our roof? So I just wanted to give one example from my own life. And here is Mr. Tomasz sitting here. So in 2017, when I was a student in Germany, in Cologne, actually, I was doing my master's in renewable energies, and I got an opportunity to do an internship in Ethiopia, in Addis. And there, in one of the conference from Rest for Africa, I met Mr. Tomasz. I don't know if he remembers. And I remember he gave me his card, and I told him about my project, my thesis, and where am I from and what I do. And in the end, he told me one thing like, Deepak, you're doing a great job. Keep doing. The sector needs people like you. That was one thing which has personally influenced me a lot in defining my, let's say, career choice of what to do after my master's. And I ended up working in Alliance for Rural Electrification now. So yeah, thank you so much, Tomasz, for that. And here's the live example of how you influence young people to, let's say, to take responsibility for their own future, and then also in return to show their parents or to the older generation that how important it is to see the upcoming crisis that is coming in form of climate change. And right now, examples like Kids for Future, the Greta Thunberg, the whole movement which have been started, it's a very good example of how first you influence the younger generation, and then the younger generation go one step ahead and influence you back. So that was my first take on the first question. And regarding the policy drives and how it can play a pivotal role in terms of, let's say, driving the sector forward, I see as a policy, having been working in this policy arena for a year now, I see that everything starts with a policy. So in Alliance for Rural Electrification, as part of our functioning, there is one service line which we follow, which is policy and advocacy, under which we represent the voice of our more than 150 members. So who do we voice these, let's say, grievances or suggestions or recommendation to? To the governments, to the policymakers, to the philanthropists, to the funders, or at least to the people who are on, let's say, in power to, let's say, make, let's say, to bring about a change in this sector. Therefore, everything starts with a policy. Policy should translate the, let's say, the interest of the sector that policy is going to address to. If I made my point clear, to give you one example is right now, let's say, talk about last week, we came out with a very big the COVID-19 on the decentralized renewable energy companies, and at least go, let's say, sprint
Seems like we're
the
having some
previous
connectivity
times,
issues
but at
there,
least,
Deepak.
oh, I'm sorry. Is it
That's a little better.
clear? I'm sorry. I don't know.
Shoot. Seems like we're having some technical difficulties there.
Yes, therefore,
It might help to switch off
while
the
making the
video.
policy, we should always take care of.
It might
Yes,
help to
I'm going to
switch
do
off
that right
video.
now.
Yeah, maybe now you are better.
Okay, great.
Sorry about my bandwidth here. Am I
That's okay.
audible now?
Yeah, you know what? The audio is much better.
Very good.
Okay, yeah. And just to conclude
recap.
just to conclude my point, what I meant to say was, yes, the policy is very important and has the potential to play a very important role while addressing certain issues and problems in the sector. Therefore, we shouldn't forget the fact that we need to make the policy which will translate the interest of the sector that we are addressing to. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? Because actually, Alliance for Rural Electrification, it was one of my babies also. When I was working at EPIA at that time.
Yeah.
So actually, it was baby of Ernesto Macias.
That's right.
President of EPIA. And we are writing all the bylaws and helping with the budget. But you see, like this is what Charlie Gay was saying, that we are so connected, yes?
That's
Imagine
right.
we meet it in Ethiopia, suddenly he's working for rural electrification, and I was also involved, yes? Like the world is so small, yes?
Yeah.
On that point, Dave and Paulette, I have a bag. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see.
Oh yeah, there you go.
It is kind of fading in and out, but that's a ACES Solar 2017 Renewable Energy Conference. So that was time in Denver. I'm in Dubai right now, but it's good to see some fellow Coloradans on the other side of the world here. Dave, I know you've traveled the globe for years, if not decades, with the International Solar Energy Society. What do you see in terms of, you know, all of your experience in sustainability, solar industry, in terms of public influencers and education and its importance for the industry?
Well, thank you, Adam. Great to see you, and thank you for having me serve on this panel. First of all, let me just get back quickly to what Ernst said earlier, because he's absolutely right. There are two sides of the coin to being influencers. And, you know, just as an anecdotal example, look at the interchange between Greta Thunberg and Donald Trump at the recent UN meeting, where, you know, she has done such a remarkable job. And she's certainly not doing it based on any ego or anything. It's just she's doing it out of passion to communicate to the world that we have to take action now. And we can't wait any longer. And that the young people in particular are really at risk to our decisions. And of course, on the other side of the coin, you have the segment of the society that doesn't want to see change, doesn't want to disrupt our economies or feel like that we're going to disrupt our economies. And so we do have influences on both sides. So how the question is, how do we get the action that we want to see happen by working with the influencers like Greta? And to me, in my travels around the world, what I'm seeing is that everybody understands that the technologies are there, they're working. We certainly have the solutions at hand technologically. Financial resources are available to us if we just know how to mobilize them. Just look at all the pension funds around the world and the mutual funds held by universities that provide significant capital to make the proper investments for a clean tech world. And so the key is, how do we educate decision makers, and especially decision makers that have the current view that we don't want to make the key changes that society needs to make. And that's the message that I try to present when I travel around with ISIS, you know, that the technologies are working, the finances are available. We just need to establish a political will. And people like Greta can influence the public sentiment about this, but we also need behind that an educational push that clearly articulates the value of these technologies and how it works and how we don't disrupt jobs and create social injustice in the transformation. And I think what Tomas has done here by bringing us all together this week with all these different seminars and panel discussions is one very outstanding example of new ways that we can get this influence out more broadly. If we can bring in through whatever means possible the decision makers and have our messages communicated to the decision makers through these online formats, that's I think a very important step that we're taking. I think I want to congratulate Tomas once again and Ike for putting together such a great series of panels discussions this week to articulate our messages that way.
Right. Let me show you a picture. Can you see it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Lovely. With Greta. Yes.
It demonstrates that Greta also influenced me.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the word influencer has for me a pretty negative connotation. You know, for me, influencer is Paris Hilton and whatever artificial figures have been created by media industry, and suddenly these are influencers, which is a word which comes from the teenage talk, you know. But I think in reality, of course, an influencer is a much broader meaning. And I think we should take it away from this very stupid influencer level, which is represented only by people who appear in the yellow press and so on, because real influencer, and I think one of the most respected is here with us, Ernst. You have done in your lifetime so much influencing generations of people starting 30, 40, 50 years ago. And what I admire most is, of course, your continuing energy, despite your physical handicaps, to really do whatever you can in order to help the cause which we all love so dearly. So I think really the role of influencers is huge, but of course we need as well on all levels of work. You know, we need, and Dave pointed it out, we need to talk with politicians, we need to, and the core issue which we have really to influence are the electorates. You know, how can a country like the United States elect a president like Trump, you know? And even if he was not really elected because it was some tricks, my God, Hillary Clinton should have been elected by a landslide, you know? And why did it not happen? We all had not yet have the chance to influence the people enough. Maybe we can take the lessons out of the current Corona crisis. My take on the Corona crisis is, if the population of the world recognizes that the problem is serious enough, the people of the world are willing to act, you know? So the old story of the frog who sits in the water and you heat the water, or the frog you throw into the boiling water jumps out again. So we need really to take this type of picture. We need to tell the world population to jump out of the current business as usual, because it will lead us across the cliff into hothouse earth and whatever of a really horrible situation comes. And it is in a very short time, in the next 10 to 12 years. So I think we are all challenged to do that. And of course, the funny thing is that in this case, in the Corona case, we are dealing with saving old people, or let's say people who are already from previous conditions weakened. And in the other case, we save young people, we save the coming generation. So I really believe this is the reason why we are so motivated. And I think everybody who has been through the sessions yesterday and on Monday of this online conference has gotten a lot of this type of energy from like-minded people who really, we have recognized what is the problem. We have to go there. But of course, still, we are not yet heard enough, and we have to do more about it. And I think the kind of things we are doing here, Tomas, is just the right thing, you know, because we have this effect which broadens from everybody we two speak to will talk to 10 other peoples and 10 other people, so it will multiply. But this is absolutely necessary. I really think
I get that. Sorry, because I think that it's not only about speaking, because I believe in that we are connected through DNA. You see?
Yeah. I mean,
DNA is like a
yes,
magnet. Yes, so
when you mentioned the DNA thing the first time, I questioned it. I thought, what do you mean? But
see, like
you probably are
DNA
right. Yes,
can really
Yes.
because we are connected. Yes, in
yes,
the
yes,
real
yes.
time. So,
And of course, it is really true. Experience in our life shows that there are people whom you cannot convince. You know, there are people who still don't want to believe that there is a climate danger and so on. But of course, there are many people in between, and these many people in between we can readily influence and we can readily bring on the right paths. And good examples, people like Ernst, Tony, and Adam and others, and Deepak, you are doing a fantastic job as motivational for young people. This is exactly right. And I am so grateful to Greta and her movement, because this is really, for us who have been working in this direction for years and years, a very big encouragement that it is possible to move things. Friday, which is in 2 days, will be the next Fridays for Future global demonstration, and they will continue to move it. And I think we can all be grateful for that and support it. So I think the influencer issue is a very important issue, but of course it goes on all levels, and we have to work together to get the message out.
Thank you, Ike. Paulette, you had something to say there.
Just a really quick follow-up. Lots of wonderful points have been brought up. From henceforth, it seems to me that all of our discussions, whatever groups are coming together, must really have as a strong component, if not the major component, a discussion around getting this, expanding this influence base, talking to all those people in the middle ground. You know, there's certainly people in the, for example, in the United States that you'll never, you know, convince of anything different, but they're, you know, it's a huge movement. And for an example, ACES next conference, which is in June, it's an eConference 2020. A large portion of that conference is going to be devoted to discussions around this very topic of how do we expand the community of really, especially in this most critical time for the United States. We have an election coming up this fall, and it's the biggest election of this past century, this century of a lifetime. So these kind of conversations of making sure that we are all in the, you know, acknowledging and feeling that DNA that Tomasz talks about, which I totally support, that sentiment, is so important. So I look forward to many more discussions like this, but also discussions that are leading to real action. And I think this is what we're going to need.
So actually, maybe less discussions and more action. Yeah?
Yes, much more action. I'm going to go out and start acting right after I'm done with the sessions.
Unmute your microphone.
Yes, taking cue from the actions part, I would very much like to invite all of you on behalf of Alliance for Rural Electrification to sign up for the call to action that we have launched. Therefore, given the fact that we have only 1 decade left to reach all the SDG goals, and with this crisis, 2020 is almost, we can skip it, so to say, and we have 9 years. Therefore, we would like to have all the help that we can get in order to facilitate and enable a sustainable, decentralized renewable energy sector by for 21st century. Therefore, having said that, I would like to invite you. I will in the chat here, I would place a link where you can have a look at it. Also to the viewers who are watching, please feel free to connect with me and or anyone in my team to get to know more about this. Just to show you one small picture, I actually made a PowerPoint presentation, but I didn't know the setup of this discussion that I couldn't share, but I wanted to share this picture. I don't know if it is clearly visible.
It's a shark, right, or something.
Yeah, that's right. So how can I say? So there is a, okay, I can just explain. In this picture, you will see 3 sharks. One, the baby shark, which is the COVID-19. The second, let's say a bit bigger shark, which is the upcoming economic crisis. But the biggest threat, the ultimate shark, which is the climate change.
Yeah.
And there is just one human trying to escape the waters. But the crisis is, let's say, I don't want to use such words, but it is true that it's coming and we need to act fast and act smart. Therefore, yeah. So having said that, this is a call for all of us to unite, and taking cue from Tomas's comment of we are all connected through one DNA, and sorry if I say that, and then
United DNA.
Yeah, united DNA, that's right. And let's put forward all our combined efforts to this sector.
I'd like to add something on the DNA point, which I think it's important that we all we're human, right? We share so much in common. And one of my heroes, Dr. Jane Goodall, we have worked with on the Million Solar Stars front and her Roots and Shoots front. One of her big discoveries and what really kind of put her on the map was finding that chimpanzees use tools. And back in the day when she discovered that, we had to redefine what it is to be human. And we share 99% of our DNA with chimpanzees. My point is, we use tools and we adapt. And we share DNA that is rich in adaptation and it's rich in survival. And one of the things that we're doing here with this COVID-19 situation is we're adapting, and we're having an e-conference here thanks to Tomas and Ike and the CleanTech business group, and we're adapting. And what I would like to see is students who are also adapting, and they're very much so getting on board with the e-learning, as different as it is, but they are using their tools, and my students are teaching me a lot about technology and getting up the curve. So you think of Greta Thunberg and her millions and millions of students who are gathering around the world and protesting for climate change. Can we adapt and not only protest about climate change, but put the tools in those students' hands that is smart technology, like the AI technology that's coming down the pipeline, where we're having students as citizen scientists or citizen solar deployment agents or clean tech agents, and they're helping us deploy clean tech energy at schools and in communities around schools, and learning the technology that is required to do that. We're very capable of doing this. And so how can we align with the influencers, the business group, which will also make money, and that's a good thing, but we can leverage some of the ingenuity and some of the brains of our younger generation to help us with this, and not only protest, but be an active part in actually deploying clean energy and rolling out the circular economy. And I'm convinced we can do this. We just need to get the right minds together. And I think, Tomas, you're helping do that. But we need to, think of, okay, how does this make sense in a business perspective? Because we do have a lot of political headwinds facing us with, leadership that has been elected over the last few years in the States and otherwise. But the wonderful thing is renewable energy and clean tech is still striding forward at a pretty impressive pace, even with that political headwind. So can we gather students and educators and from the ground up, as well as businesses, and convince policymakers that the right direction is actually the one that is efficiency, clean tech, and involving that in schools and communities, and really adapting and evolving together to the clean energy economy.
Let me perhaps come in with an experience I had in Santa Barbara. One of the first things I did there was meeting the Dean of Engineering. And I found him extremely reasonable. And then the two of us came together and said, let us establish one curricular option for students to develop a business model for something we can later do, including the financial side, including the engineering side, including, of course, the ecological side, which often is neglected by engineers. And that has become one of the favorites of the students.
Yes.
And that, Adam, more or less fulfilled part of what you are saying.
Excellent.
Well, Adam, I believe that we shall finish soon because empowering women are waiting for the but because actually I didn't expect that it will go so well today. So
Well, talk about influencers and educators, women. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Empowered women are helping us in this transition, and we need to work together around the world as we are. And I just want to kind of close out myself just saying thank you all for being a part of this panel, and I really appreciate what you're all bringing to the table, and would love to work with you all in terms of bringing more influencers to the table, whether they're Acon, Dr. Jane, or students that are 5 years old and helping bring this conversation to their dinner tables at home. And so,
right.
How can we unite our DNA to transition to a clean energy economy in a more rapid
transform. I'm educating all our leaders, now they start saying transform,
not the energy transition, the transformation.
Yes, it's a a disruptive transformation. It is a disruptive transformation. Yes.
See, as an educator, I'm a lifelong learner. Thank you, guys.
So thank you so much for joining, Paulette. Thank you, Mr. Fon.
Good to see you, Ernst.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Yes.
Thank you.
And let's think about action. So no more words, but now action.
Okay.
And I think Deepak, Deepak, as you got inspiration from me, now you will be in charge to prepare some action. Okay.
Indeed.
Okay.
And that's a promise.
Okay.
Very good.
Thumbs up for solar as we sign out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.